Let's continue taking a balanced approach looking at the New Deal, the modern liberal versus the classic liberal, or the progressive versus the libertarian view on the New Deal and the New Deal programs. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt gets elected, one of his promises is to provide immediate relief, provide recovery, and reform. So help us now, fix the economy so that we're all working, and let's make sure this never happens again. Sounds like a great idea for the progressive. Let's let the government get in here and fix things. The libertarian or classic liberal says this sounds like a bad idea. The government really doesn't know how to run a business. They're not involved in businesses. They could probably only make things worse. So those are your differing ideas there. And let's just see what happens. So let's look at some of the things that happens when FDR gets elected and says, all right, we're going to get involved in the economy. The government's going to get hands-on and fix stuff for people. And it's true. They definitely do fix stuff for some people. And for some people, well, we'll get to that. So number one, the government say, look, there's going to be a minimum wage. Instead of paying people 2 cents an hour, it's got to be a minimum amount. We're going to write a law that says you cannot pay people less than a certain amount. And to most people listening, say, that's a great idea. The progressive's going to say, that's a great idea. The modern liberal's going to say, that's a great idea. The libertarian's going to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Get to the details because we think that could backfire. We'll get to that in a second. They're also going to create maximum hours. I'll show you both sides of the maximum hours. The progressive, the modern liberal is going to say that this is great. You shouldn't make people work 40, 60, 80 hours a week. There should be a limit. The government needs to step in and stop the bosses from forcing people to work too much. On the other hand, there are some people that, hey, I need to work 60 hours. I need to work 70 hours. I've got student loans. I've got a family to feed. I need to work over a certain point. And now the government is preventing me from working. Sure, this law helps some people who don't want to work that much and protects them from an evil boss. But some people are willing to work a lot. So my own example is when I was paying off all of my debts and I was working in a dining hall and I needed to work as much as possible, I would have worked 70 hours a week, and I signed up for 70 hours a week because that's how much debt I had. I was desperate for the money and I didn't care. But the government stepped in and said, nope, you can only work 40 hours. If you go over 40 hours, they've got to pay you more. And my employer was not willing to do that. So this is an example of how, hey, the government's got involved and it's not working out. Some people they're protecting, but some people are definitely going to get hurt by this program. And that's really the theme of the New Deal. Some of these New Deal programs by FDR and the government help some people, and other people end up as losers. We'll explain that in a second. Collective bargaining, I'm not going to go into detail of this. Collective bargaining means basically you and all of your fellow employees can negotiate with your boss so that you all get raises. And that's fine. You're progressive, you're modern liberals, and say it's a good deal. This is a way that people get paid a fair amount. The libertarian, the classic liberal is going to say, hey, it's good that people are getting paid more, but you should get paid more on an individual basis. When you have collective bargaining, you're all a team. That means everyone gets a raise. Well, some people work harder than others, but they're still getting the same raise as the laziest worker, just like in a football team. The quarterback gets paid a lot. Should the quarterback be paid the same as the punter? Well, collective bargaining says that we should all negotiate together, and so the quarterback and the punter make the same wages. Progressives, modern liberals say, yes, that's collective bargaining. We should all negotiate together. The libertarian, the conservative, the classic liberal says that no, there should be bargaining. You and your boss should be able to negotiate wages, but it should be on an individual basis. The quarterback gets the most. The punter gets little. If someone's lazy, they don't get paid. So those are your different ideas there. The reality is, do you really want the government coming in and making these decisions and then stop overproduction? The government comes up with the theory that, well, the reason why everyone's suffering is because we've made too many goods. We have too many cars. We have too much corn. And that increase in supply has driven prices down. And that means the car companies aren't making enough money and they're going out of business. That means the farmers aren't making enough money off their corn and they're going out of business. The government must get involved in the production. Now think about that for a second. Stop, hit the brakes. The government for the first time is getting very, very involved in the economy. They're getting involved in production. They're getting involved in distribution. They're getting involved in consumption. They're walking into a business and saying, stop, you are not allowed to make more goods. Imagine today, the government in their shirt and suit and tie walking into your favorite Mexican restaurant and saying, sorry, you can only serve 20 tacos today. You would be flabbergasted. You would be shocked. You're like, what are you talking about? The government cannot come in and control the amount of tacos that I make. That is literally what the government did in these New Deal programs. Classic liberal, modern liberal, they should probably look at this the same. They don't. But here's the thing. Do you want the government coming into your business and telling you how much or how few of a good you can make? Most people are going to say, I don't know, I need to think about it. I'm definitely not going to say yes immediately, but the way that we treat the New Deal is that it's this heroic endeavor by the government and it saved the country, when we can quickly, easily say that, wait. I don't know if that's a good thing for the government to step in and say, you can't make more cars, or tell a boss exactly how to run his business. Is that what we want the government to do? Well, we started it then, and it's been very hard to dial that back. The government has been very involved in the economy, involved in the market, involved in the production, in the consumption, and the distribution of goods. Federal government plays a big role in our lives now. Did not used to be. The New Deal changed everything, and we may never go back to the days where the government wasn't getting involved in all this. So remember, your AP guidelines, they love FDR, they love the government. So if you're taking the AP test and you're trying to get the best score possible, always kind of default to, does this answer say that the government is good? If the answer says that the government is good, that's probably the right answer. That's what the AP steers you towards. The truth, the reality, or the more balanced approach says that, hey, government's not evil, but they make mistakes. And sometimes their programs hurt more than they help. Or at the very least, when the government creates a program, some people will benefit, but some people will lose. But it's not all winning. It's not all great. But the AP is mainly going to tell you that all great government, greatest president ever. We'll get more into that in a little bit. So federal government is playing a big role now. And they're going to fix our lives. But the big question that you should ask yourself is, when the government's getting involved in the economy, the production, the distribution, the consumption of goods, when the government is doing this, well, who are they really fixing it for? They can't fix it for everybody because everybody's different. Everybody's in a different situation. Some people are rich, some people are poor. And it's very hard for the government to create a one program that helps people of all different backgrounds and all different incomes and all different fields of situations in life and jobs. So let me give you some perfect examples. So first of all, the government's going to say, we're going to stop overproduction. We talked about this before. The theory is that we are producing too many goods and the supply is too high. It's driven the price down. And that means the producers, the car manufacturers, the farmers, because the price is so low, they can't make enough money and they're going out of business. So the government steps in and says, hey, we've got to stop this. We are going to fix it. So their plan is, we've got to stop overproduction. The easiest way to do it is to literally stop overproduction. So we'll take the example for farmers in this case. The government's going to tell farmers, you're going to plow less of your field. You're going to harvest less crops. And in many situations, the government's going to come in and literally destroy corn while people are starving through the 1930s, while the economic depression's hit and we are in the worst situation ever and people have no money, they have no food, and the government, in order to control production, because they believe that overproduction is a problem, they're going to destroy food. We're going to talk more about this when we talk about the grapes of wrath, when the government, in front of starving people, destroys food to control the supply. So now, when they've destroyed all this corn, poured chemicals on it, set it on fire, once they've done this, they've lowered the supply of corn. When the supply goes down, price goes up. Guess what? The farmer now can make money. The farmers will stay in business. Before, the supply was too high. The farmers were not making enough money selling corn, so they could not pay off their loans. They could not pay off their debts, and eventually the farmers went out of business. Now that we've controlled the production by just literally destroying it, we've manipulated the supply, so that has manipulated the price, that's jacked the price up, and so now farmers are making more money. So in this situation, this is great. The government is making life better for farmers. Hooray! But not so fast. Because, as I mentioned before, there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers. And in this case, if we jack up the price of corn, it's great for the farmer, but you, the customer, now have to pay more for corn. Sure, the government fixed it for the farmer, but what about you? Before you get corn for 50 cents, now it's $2. I don't got $2. So that's the way to look at these programs. Sure, the New Deal is an interesting piece. It's an interesting program in America. But when people say that it's all good, obviously it's not all good. If we raise prices, then farmers make more money. Cool. But if we raise prices, then you, the customer, the consumer, are spending more for corn. You're spending more to buy a car. You're spending more for whatever the government is controlling in production. The question is, who are they helping? They cannot help every single person. One program is going to benefit some and harm others. And this is a perfect example. Do you want the government to do this? Let's keep on going. So the Grapes of Wrath is a perfect, it's one of the greatest American pieces of literature, and it talks specifically about this event, the government controlling supply to help farmers. They can do one or the other. They can keep food prices low so that he can afford to eat, or they can jack food prices up by destroying food to protect the farmers. The government decides they're going to help the farmers. And we see this all throughout history. The government has to make choices of who they're going to help. They're going to help the poor, they're going to help the rich, they're going to help the farmers, they're going to help the teachers, they're going to help the workers, they're going to help the bosses. We have people that are in conflict. We have people that are working against each other. And if the government gets involved, they're going to pick one or the other. The best situation from the classical liberal, from the libertarian, is maybe the government shouldn't pick winners and losers. Maybe the government should stand back and let the two parties work it out. But since the New Deal and into our current time, the government has a very large role in the economy. And if they get involved, then they're going to pick. And in this case, they pick the farmers. They're going to help the rich and greedy farmers. And you can see this picture of them basically killing livestock. There's too much livestock, too many cows, there's too many pigs. So guess what we do? They literally, I'm saying literally a lot, but I want to get this point across. They kill the pigs and they throw them in a ditch, cover them in lime, and bury it. That's food that people could have eaten, but they're trying to control the supply, because if the supply of hogs or pigs or pork is too high, the price goes down. Farmers can't make any money, but hey, he gets to eat. So what the government decides to do is, hey, well, let's just kill it all, and so we'll lower the supply, that jack the prices up, that's good for the farmers. But this kid starves. And this is a picture of them throwing food in a ditch. Perfectly good food that people could have eaten. And this is talked about in The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. And we'll pick a specific passage of it. And they stand still and watch the potatoes float by. The government has taken potatoes and just dumped them in a river. Listen to the screaming pigs being killed in a ditch and covered with quick lime. They just kill the pigs, throw them in a ditch. That's perfectly good food. Watch the mountains of oranges slop down to a putrefying use. Oranges that starving kids could have eaten, but the government is destroying it to control the supply to help out specific farmers while other farmers struggle. And in the eyes of the people, there is a failure. And in the eyes of the hungry, there is a growing wrath. In the souls of the people, the grapes of wrath are filling and growing heavy for the vintage. So what is he saying here at the end? Let's translate. In the souls of the people, the grapes of wrath are filling and growing heavy for the vintage. So the oppressed, the people that are the losers, the government's picking the winners, and they're the losers, the people that the government's not helping out, the government that the people are getting cheated by. The government is cheating certain people. They are the oppressed, and they are ripening, just like a fruit is ripening and filling, and they're starting to understand what's really going on. They're starting to understand that they are being oppressed, and that the government is picking winners, and the government's picking losers. The government's controlling the supply of food to help out the winners, while everyone else suffers. They're finding out that, hey, there's some greedy farmers that are benefiting it. There are some people that are being protected and being chosen by the government, and while others are being chosen to lose. And this is not just some unlucky event where the economy crashed or there was a drought. They are realizing, they are ripening to the idea that this wasn't luck. This wasn't an unfortunate event. The government and certain people are playing an active role in picking winners and picking losers, and the people are angry. And the souls of the people, the grapes of wrath are filling and growing heavy for the vintage. So this comes from two famous passages. Revelation, which is your Bible, it talks about end times. So the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters from the vine of the earth and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. So basically, God is killing people, but we use symbolism. It says like God's killing a bunch of people. He's smashing grapes, and that's symbolic of God killing all the people that are doing wrong. The wrath, the anger of God. And this is what the people are feeling during this time. This is what they want. The battle hymn of the Republic also echoes this same sentiment in 1861. Civil War time. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He's trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. So again, God is angry and he's trampling out the grapes of wrath. He's trampling out the vintage. What does vintage mean? Vintage is basically the season's yield of grapes. So all the grapes of that year, God's smashing them. And that's symbolic of God smashing the people who are doing wrong. He's getting his revenge. He's getting his anger. God will smash, get revenge, get justice by smashing his enemies, like smashing grapes. And this is what the grapes of wrath, this is what Steinbeck is saying. This is the people that are struggling, the people that are oppressed. They're noticing that the government is betraying them. The government and the select people that the government has chosen, whether it be rich businessmen or rich farmers or whoever it is, they are oppressing and holding the people back. And the people are angry and they're not going to take it anymore. Why grapes? Well, grapes make wine. Wine is the color of blood. That's the symbolism here, the smashing of the grapes and the red blood flowing. Steinbeck is saying that people are mad and they want revenge. Often people read this and like, oh man, those rich people are keeping them down. No, it's not the rich people. But we're told that because the AP and your history books are always telling you that the government's the hero. They saved the U.S. with these New Deal programs. But if you really read the Grapes of Wrath and you look at that passage, you think about it, the government's the villain. The New Deal is not helping people. They are starving people. They're throwing food in the water. They're destroying oranges. They're killing pigs. It's right there in his book describing the New Deal and the Depression and what the government is doing to oppress people. This idea that the government is a hero is absolutely insane. But that's going to be the answer on AP history, that the New Deal program saved people. But the reality, the history of one of the greatest pieces of American literature, it details in the most famous passage the government destroying food and the people being angry and the people ripening and wisening and realizing the government is doing this. The government is holding us back. The government is creating this division. And that division is also holding us down. Whew.